Jin sat in his small apartment, the blue light of his laptop screen washing over his tired face. The city of Bizin was a blanket of twinkling lights outside his window, a sight he usually found comforting. But tonight, it just felt like a million other people living a million other lives. And his felt very small. He was a graphic designer, and his day had been long and full of small, frustrating changes from clients. His work was good, but it was not exciting. His life was comfortable, but it was not an adventure. He closed the file he was working on and sighed. He opened an internet browser, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. He was bored. On a whim, he typed in the address for a new website a friend had told him about. A joke more than anything. It was called Stellar Link. The advertisement had said, "Find a connection beyond your world." Jin assumed it was just another dating app. But for people who like science fiction and role-playing, he created a profile, not thinking too much about it. He used his real first name, Jin, for pictures. He chose a few normal ones, one of him smiling with his friends, one of him on a hiking trail, and one he was particularly proud of, a photo he had taken himself of rain hitting his window. With the city lights blurred and beautiful in the background, his bio was simple. He wrote, "I like making art on a computer. I like taking pictures of my city. I make music sometimes to relax. No one makes kimchi like my grandmother." It was all true. It was just him. He started scrolling through the other profiles on Stellar Link. They were exactly what he expected. There was a person claiming to be a Martian botanist. Another said they were a cyborg from the future. Jin smiled. It was silly and fun. He swiped left on most of them, not taking any of it seriously. Then, he saw her. Her profile name was Luminous_1. The pictures were different. They didn't look like cheap computer graphics. They looked real. In one, she was standing on a balcony overlooking a city, but the buildings were made of what looked like white crystal and glowing pink light. In another, she was looking over her shoulder, her eyes a striking shade of purple, her skin smooth and seeming to have a very faint silver shimmer. She was tall and elegant, and she wore clothes that looked both simple and impossibly fine. She was the most beautiful woman Jin had ever seen, real or not. He read her bio. It said, "Life can be lonely in a crowded room. I seek a genuine connection with someone who sees the universe for its beauty, not its power. I love art, quiet moments, and the stories of simple, honest lives." Jin felt a strange pull. This was not like the other profiles. It felt sincere. The lonely in a crowded room part hit him. He knew that feeling. He looked at her picture again, at her amethyst eyes. They looked intelligent and kind. On a complete impulse, his finger moved to the right of the screen. He swiped right. The screen immediately flashed. A large, happy sound played from his laptop speakers. "It's a match," the screen declared in cheerful letters. Jin's eyebrows went up. He hadn't even finished being surprised when a new message window popped up. "Your image of the rain on the city lights. It captures a melancholy beauty my world lacks. I am Yuna." Jin's heart did a little jump. He looked at the message. It was direct. It was about his photograph. He felt a flush of pride. He typed back, "Thank you. I took that from my apartment. I'm Jin. Your pictures are incredible. The special effects are amazing." A reply came back almost instantly. "Special effects? This is the view from my observatory. It is the capital city of my home." Jin smiled. She was committed to the role play. He could play along. It was more interesting than anything else he was doing. "So, where is home?" He typed, "A place very far from you. A star system your people have not yet named. But tell me about your music. What is lo-fi?" And so, they began to talk. Night after night, after his boring work was done, Jin would open Stellar Link, and there would be a message from Yuna. Their conversations were easy and deep. He told her about his life. He explained lo-fi music, how it was chill and relaxed, and he sent her a link to a mix he had made. She said she listened to it while reviewing official documents and found it calming. He told her about his grandmother, how she had taught him to make kimchi, the exact sound the cabbage made when it was ready. Yuna was fascinated. She asked detailed questions about the smell of the garlic, the color of the chili powder, the feeling of family it created. "You do this not for survival, but for taste? For memory?" she asked. "Yes," Jin replied. "It tastes like home." In return, Yuna told him about her world. She spoke of glowing gardens that sang in the wind, of skies with 2 moons, of art made from shaped light. She never said, "I am an alien Empress," but she talked about her duties, the weight of her position, the difficulty of knowing who to trust. She called it the burden of the crown. Jin still thought it was part of the game. A very creative and detailed one. He imagined she was some kind of writer or artist herself, using him as a muse for her stories. "You are lucky," she wrote one evening. "Your choices are your own. If you want to walk to the sea and listen to the waves, you can. My every movement is watched. My every word is analyzed. Talking to you, Jin, is the first truly free thing I have done in a long time." Jin felt a pang of sympathy for her, even if it was just a character. "I'm sorry," he typed. "That sounds hard." "It is," she replied. "But our conversations make it lighter." Weeks turned into a month. Jin realized he was looking forward to talking to Yuna, more than he looked forward to going out with his friends. Her messages were the highlight of his day. He found himself thinking about her during the day, wondering what she would say about a funny sign he saw or a song he heard on the bus. One night, the conversation felt different. Yuna's messages were slower, more serious. "Jin," she wrote, "the connection we have formed, it is more significant than you can possibly imagine. For my people, such a bond is rare and sacred. It is called soul thread resonance. It is a pull towards one person across the stars." Jin read the message, a warm feeling in his chest. It was a beautiful thing to say, even in a game. "I feel like we have a connection too," he wrote back, being honest. "I really enjoy talking to you." "That is not what I mean," her message came back quickly. "This is not a simple feeling. It is a fundamental truth of our existence. I can no longer bear this separation. It is a physical pain." Jin was a little taken aback by the intensity. "What are you saying?" "I am coming to you, Jin." He laughed. This was a new level of the game. "Okay," he typed. "I'll clean my apartment. When should I expect you?" "My fleet will exit faster than light travel and arrive in your orbital space in 3 of your days. Be ready." "Your fleet? Wow, you're bringing friends." "I might not have enough kimchi for a whole fleet." He was still joking, playing along. "There is no need for you to provide sustenance. Our ships are self-sufficient. I look forward to walking with you in your city of lights. Until then, Jin." She signed off. Jin closed his laptop, still smiling. It was the most fun and interesting roleplay he had ever been a part of. He went to bed thinking about what kind of person Yuna really was. He imagined she was probably a very creative, slightly lonely Korean girl living in another city, maybe Seoul. He decided that when she finally admitted the game was over, he would ask to meet her for real coffee. The next 3 days passed normally. He went to work, he talked to his friends, he messaged Yuna in the evenings. She spoke of her journey, of the stars she was passing. She seemed genuinely excited. Jin played along, asking about the ship and what it was like to travel in space. On the evening of the 3rd day, Jin was watching a movie on his television. It was a quiet night. Suddenly, his phone started buzzing. And buzzing. It wasn't stopping. He picked it up. It was his friend, Minsu. "Jin, are you seeing this? Turn on the news." "Any news? What? What's going on?" "Just turn it on." Jin found the remote and changed the channel. On the screen was a frantic news anchor. Behind the anchor was a live image of the night sky. And in the sky, where there should have been stars, were ships. Massive, dark, silent ships. They were geometric and sleek, like shards of obsidian, and they were arranged in a perfect, terrifying formation that covered a huge part of the sky. The news banner at the bottom of the screen read, "Global event, unidentified objects in orbit." Jin's blood ran cold. He stood up, walking slowly to his window. He looked up at the sky over Bizen, and he saw them. They were there, real and unmoving, blocking out the familiar constellations. The city below was in an uproar. He could hear car horns and sirens. His phone buzzed again with an emergency alert from the government. He stood there, frozen, for a long time, just staring at the impossible sight. This was not a movie. This was real. His laptop, sitting on his coffee table, made a soft, familiar chime. It was the sound of a new message on Stellar Link. His legs felt weak as he walked over and opened it. It was from Yuna. "Jin," the message said. "I have arrived. My fleet is in position. I am beginning my descent to your coordinates. Please, do not be afraid. I will see you soon." The sound of the city had changed. The usual hum of traffic and distant chatter was gone, replaced by a strange, heavy silence broken only by the wail of sirens. People were shouting in the streets below, their voices sharp with panic. Jin stood at his window, his knuckles white as he gripped the sill. The impossible ships hung in the sky, dark and silent, like a judgment. His mind was a storm of confusion. This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of mass hallucination, a global prank. But the cold knot of fear in his stomach told him it was true. His laptop chimed again. The sound was so ordinary, so out of place, that it made him jump. He looked at the screen. The message from Yuna glowed there. "I am beginning my descent to your coordinates." Coordinates. His address. She was coming here. A different, more immediate fear seized him. He stumbled away from the window, his heart hammering against his ribs. What should he do? Run. Where could he possibly go? Hide. He looked around his small, messy apartment. There was no place to hide from whatever this was. His eyes landed on a framed picture of his family. His mother, his father, his younger sister. A fresh wave of terror washed over him. Were they safe? What was happening to them? He grabbed his phone. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely dial. He tried his mother's number. The line was dead. A recorded message played, saying all circuits were busy. He tried his father. Same thing. His sister. Nothing. He felt utterly alone. The sirens outside grew louder, converging on his neighborhood. He heard the rumble of heavy vehicles and the sharp, amplified voice of someone issuing orders through a megaphone. He couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. Emergency. He crept back to the window, peering carefully through the blinds. The street was now filled with military trucks and soldiers in combat gear. They were setting up barricades, their faces tense and serious. They were evacuating his building. He saw his neighbors being hurried out of their apartments, their faces confused and scared. They were being led away quickly, not even allowed to grab their belongings. A loud, authoritative knock shook his door. Open up. This is the military. You need to evacuate immediately. Jin's breath caught in his throat. He didn't move. He couldn't. The knocking came again, harder this time. We know you're in there. Open the door. With trembling legs, Jin walked to the door and unlocked it. Two soldiers stood there, their rifles held ready. Their eyes were wide with a fear they were trying hard to control. You need to come with us now. One of them barked. But, my family. Jin stammered. No time. Let's go. The soldier grabbed his arm and pulled him into the hallway. They moved quickly down the stairs, joining the stream of other evacuated residents. But instead of going outside with everyone else, the soldiers directed Jin into a small, windowless room on the ground floor that looked like a manager's office. Inside were two more soldiers and a man in a dark suit, his face grim. The man in the suit looked at Jin. Are you Jin? Jin could only nod. The entity that controls those ships. It is communicating with you. Jin nodded again, his throat too dry to speak. How? The man demanded. An app. On my laptop. It's called Stellar Link. The man's eyes widened slightly. We need that laptop. Now. One of the soldiers was sent back to Jin's apartment. The room was silent except for the frantic radio chatter from the soldiers' equipment. The man in the suit never took his eyes off Jin. A few minutes later, the soldier returned with Jin's laptop. They set it on the desk and opened it. The Stellar Link page was still open, Yuna's message staring back at them. As they watched, a new message appeared. My shuttle is approaching your atmosphere. I will land in the open area near your dwelling. Please, be there to greet me. The man in the suit cursed under his breath. He spoke into his own radio. Target is inbound. Repeat, the target is inbound to my location. All units, stand by. Do not, I repeat, do not engage. We have no idea what we're dealing with. The next 20 minutes were the longest of Jin's life. The tension in the little room was so thick it was hard to breathe. The soldiers checked their weapons over and over. The man in the suit stared at the live news feed on a tablet, which showed aerial views of a single, smaller craft breaking away from the massive fleet and descending towards Bizin, towards his neighborhood. Then, a new sound began. It was a low, deep hum that seemed to vibrate through the very walls of the building. It wasn't loud, but it was powerful. You could feel it in your bones. It's here, one of the soldiers whispered. The man in the suit looked at Jin. You're coming with us. You are the only point of contact we have. You will do exactly as we say. Do you understand? Jin, numb with fear, nodded. They moved out of the room and into the building's empty lobby. Through the glass doors, Jin could see the street. The soldiers had taken positions behind their vehicles, their weapons trained on the empty parking lot at the center of the apartment complex. The humming grew louder. A shadow fell over the area. Jin looked up. A sleek, silver craft, no bigger than a bus, was descending silently. It made no smoke, no fire. It just floated down, as light as a feather, and settled perfectly in the middle of the parking lot. The humming stopped. The silence that followed was even more terrifying. For a moment, nothing happened. The entire world seemed to be holding its breath. Then a seamless section of the shuttle's hull slid aside, forming a ramp. A soft, white light spilled out from the opening. Two figures emerged first. They were tall, much taller than any person Jin had ever seen, and clad in form-fitting armor that seemed to absorb the light. Their faces were hidden behind smooth, dark helmets. They moved with a fluid, powerful grace that was not human. They took up positions on either side of the ramp, standing perfectly still like statues, and then she appeared. Yuna. She was exactly as her pictures had shown. But pictures could not capture her presence. She was real, solid, and utterly alien. Her silver-dusted skin seemed to glow in the strange light from her ship. Her long, dark hair was woven with threads of what looked like starlight. She wore a simple, elegant gown of a material that shifted color like oil on water. Her amethyst eyes scanned the scene, taking in the ring of soldiers, the weapons pointed at her, the terrified faces. She showed no fear. Her expression was calm, regal. Her gaze swept over the soldiers and then settled on the glass doors of the lobby. She seemed to look right through the glass, right at Jin. She began to walk. Her steps were slow and deliberate, her posture straight and proud. The two armored guards fell in behind her, their movements perfectly synchronized. The soldiers aiming their rifles flinched, their fingers tense on the triggers, but no one fired. The man in the suit pushed the lobby door open and stepped out, pulling Jin along with him. They stood a few meters from the shuttle, the soldiers all around them. Yuna stopped a short distance in front of them. She looked at the man in the suit, then dismissed him completely. Her eyes, those incredible purple eyes, locked onto Jin. A small, sad smile touched her lips. "Jin," she said. Her voice was the same melodic tone from their chats, but now it was filled with a physical resonance that vibrated in the air. "You are even more in person than your image conveyed." Jin could not speak. He could only stare. This was the woman he had shared jokes with, the one he had told about his grandmother's kimchi. She was real, and she had an army. The man in the suit cleared his throat, trying to take control. "I am Agent Park, with the National Intelligence Service. On behalf of the people of Earth, I demand to know your intentions." Yuna slowly turned her head to look at him, as if noticing him for the first time. "My intentions are not for you to demand," she said, her voice calm but firm. "They are for Jin to accept." She looked back at Jin. "I told you I was coming. Our connection is a sacred thing. It is a soul thread resonance. I have crossed the stars for you." Jin finally found his voice, though it was a shaky whisper. "Yuna, what is this? What are you?" "I am Yuna, Empress of the Korvax Star Dominion. And you, Jin, are my fated partner." She gestured gracefully towards the sky. "This fleet is my gift to you, and to your world. Your planet is now under the protection of the Dominion. The wars, the sickness, the hunger they are over. I will give your people a new future." Agent Park took a step forward. "You can't just declare our planet a protectorate. We are a sovereign species." Yuna's gaze hardened slightly. "Your sovereignty is a concept that does not extend to those who hold the power to shatter your world. This is not a negotiation. It is a fact." She looked back at Jin, her expression softening again. "But it is a peaceful one. You have nothing to fear. Come with me, Jin. Take your place at my side." She extended a slender hand towards him. Her fingers were long and elegant. Jin looked at her hand. He looked at the terrifying fleet in the sky. He looked at the faces of the soldiers, filled with fear and confusion. He thought of his family, somewhere out there, probably terrified. This was all because of him. Because he had swiped right on a dating app. The weight of it all crashed down on him. The woman he had developed feelings for was an alien empress. Her gift was the conquest of his entire planet. And she was offering him a choice he never asked for. His legs felt weak. The world started to spin. The last thing he saw was Yuna's confident smile before everything went black, and he collapsed to the ground. Jin woke up on a soft, unfamiliar couch. The air smelled clean and strange, like ozone and flowers. He was in a large, plain room with white walls and no windows. A soft light came from the ceiling. For a moment, he thought it was all a bad dream. Then he remembered. The ships, the shuttle. Yuna. He sat up quickly, his head spinning. Agent Park was sitting in a chair across from him, looking at a tablet. He looked up when Jin moved. "Good, you're awake," Agent Park said. His voice was flat and tired. "How are you feeling? Where are we?" Jin asked, his throat dry. "A secure facility. Underground." Agent Park put the tablet down. "They moved us here right after you fainted. The whole world is watching, Jin. And right now, you are the most important person on the planet." Jin put his head in his hands. "This can't be real." "It's real." Agent Park stood up and started pacing. "That woman, Yuna, and her guards are in a different part of this building. She refuses to speak to anyone but you. World leaders are on a conference call. They are terrified. They need to know what she wants. And you are the only one who can talk to her." Just then, the door opened. Two of the Korvax guards walked in. They were even more imposing up close without their helmets. Their faces were stern and angular, with skin the color of stone. They did not look at Agent Park. They looked only at Jin. "The Empress requests your presence," one of them said. His voice was a deep, synthesized rumble. Jin looked at Agent Park, who gave a tense nod. There was no choice. Jin stood up, his legs still shaky, and followed the guards out of the room. They walked down long, brightly lit corridors lined with soldiers who watched them pass with wide, fearful eyes. They entered a large conference room. It was filled with screens, each showing the face of a different world leader. Men and women from every country stared out, their expressions a mix of fear and anger. In the center of the room, sitting calmly in a chair, was Yuna. She had changed into a simpler, but still elegant, gray outfit. She smiled when she saw Jin. "Jin, I am glad you are well. The gravity and atmosphere here are slightly different from my ship. It can be a shock." One of the people on a screen, an older man with a grim face, spoke first. "Empress Yuna, I am the Secretary General of the United Nations. We demand an explanation for this act of aggression." Yuna turned her head slowly towards the screen. "It is not aggression. It is destiny. My connection with Jin is a sacred bond for my people. Where he goes, I go. And his world is now my concern." Another leader, a woman, spoke sharply. "You cannot just claim our planet." "I am not claiming it for its resources or its land," Yuna replied, her voice still calm. "I am offering it my protection. My fleet will shield you from the dangers of this galaxy. My technology will end your suffering. Your diseases will be cured. Your energy problems will be solved. You will want for nothing." "And the price?" the Secretary General asked, his voice heavy. Yuna looked at Jin, her purple eyes soft. "The price is Jin. He will return with me to my ship, and then to my homeworld, to rule at my side as consort, and Earth will become a protected territory of the Korvax Dominion. You will follow our guidance. It is a small price for a golden age." The room erupted. The faces on the screens were all talking at once, their voices a chaotic mix of outrage and panic. "Consort, this is madness. You're asking us to surrender our freedom. We will not be a slave species." Yuna waited for the noise to die down. Her calmness was more powerful than their anger. "You misunderstand. This is not a request. It is the new reality. My fleet is in position. Your weapons are like toys to them. You have seen our arrival. You know this is true." She turned to Jin. "Tell them, Jin. Tell them about our connection. Tell them how we spoke, how we shared our lives. This is not a conquest. It is a union." Every eye in the room, and on every screen, turned to Jin. He felt the weight of the entire world on his shoulders. He swallowed hard. "It's true," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Then he cleared his throat and spoke louder. "We talked, on an app, for weeks. I thought it was a game. I thought she was a person from another city. We talked about music, and food, and family." He looked at Yuna, pleading with his eyes. "But this, Yuna, this is too much. You can't just take over a planet because we had nice conversations." Yuna's smile was patient, like she was explaining something to a child. "It is not nice conversations, Jin. It is a soul thread. It is the most powerful force in our existence. It is a bond that defines destiny. My people have waited generations for a resonance as pure as ours. I will not ignore it." The Secretary General spoke again, trying to regain control. "Empress, you must understand. We cannot make a decision like this so quickly. We need time." Yuna stood up. Her presence seemed to fill the room. "You have time. I am not without mercy. You have 72 of your hours. 3 days. Use them to prepare your people for the transition." She looked around at all the screens, her gaze cool and imperial. "At the end of that time, I will have my answer. And I will have Jin. If you agree, my fleet becomes your shield and my science becomes your salvation. If you refuse," she paused, and the silence was terrifying, "then my fleet will demonstrate why the Korvax Dominion does not tolerate defiance. The choice is yours." She turned and began to walk towards the door, her guards falling in behind her. She stopped next to Jin. "I know this is sudden," she said softly for only him to hear. "But our life together will be more magnificent than you can imagine. Think of the good we can do for your world." Then she was gone, leaving Jin alone in the middle of the room, surrounded by the stunned and angry faces of Earth's leaders on the screens. The next 3 days were chaos. Jin was kept in the secure facility. He was questioned for hours and hours by teams of experts, psychologists, sociologists, military strategists. Everyone wanted to understand Yuna. Everyone wanted to find a weakness. Agent Park was almost always with him. "You have to make her understand," Park said again and again. "You have to reason with her. This soul thread nonsense. Convince her it's a mistake." Outside, the world was falling apart. There were protests and riots. Some people, terrified of the fleet, formed groups demanding that Jin be handed over immediately to save the planet. They called him the key to survival. Others called him a traitor, the man who had invited the end of the world. His face was on every news channel. His family had been taken into protective custody after reporters swarmed their home. Jin felt like he was in a prison. He couldn't sleep. He could barely eat. The pressure was crushing him. He watched the news on a monitor in his room. He saw the fear in people's eyes. He saw the massive ships still hanging silently in the sky, a constant reminder of what was at stake. He thought about his conversations with Yuna. He had liked her, truly liked her. She had been funny and smart, and she seemed to understand him. But the person he had talked to online was different from the Empress in the conference room. The Empress was used to giving orders. The Empress saw 8 billion people as a problem to be solved. On the morning of the third day, Jin was allowed to see his family. They were brought to the facility. His mother hugged him tightly, crying. His father looked older, his face lined with worry. His sister just stared at him, her eyes full of confusion. "Are you really going to marry an alien queen?" his sister asked. "I don't know," Jin said, his voice hollow. His mother held his face in her hands. "You must be brave, Jin. But you must also be smart. Do not let them force you into anything." After they left, Jin felt more alone than ever. He sat in his room, watching the clock count down the final hours. He thought about what Yuna had offered. An end to war and sickness. It sounded like a dream. But the cost was everything that made Earth what it was. Its freedom. Its chaos. Its messy, beautiful, independent life. Agent Park came into the room. "It's time," he said. "The UN has reached a decision. They want you in the room when they give their answer to Yuna." Jin followed him back to the large conference room. The screens were active again, showing the world leaders. They all looked exhausted and defeated. Yuna was already there, sitting in her chair, looking as calm and perfect as ever. The Secretary General spoke. "Empress Yuna, we have debated your offer. The nations of Earth cannot, and will not, voluntarily surrender our sovereignty. We reject your proposal." A grim silence filled the room. This was it. War. Yuna's face showed no surprise. She simply nodded. "A foolish choice. But it is yours to make." She stood up. "My fleet will now wait." The word burst from Jin's lips before he could stop it. Everyone stared at him. "Yuna, please," Jin said, stepping forward. "You said our connection was real. You said you valued my thoughts. Then listen to me now. Please, just give me one more day." Yuna looked at him, her head tilted. "For what purpose, Jin? So they can delay the inevitable?" "No," Jin said, his mind racing. "Not for them, for us. You want me to leave my world forever. You want me to be your consort. But you don't know my world. You only know what I told you in messages. Before I make this choice, before I leave everything behind, I want to show you. I want to show you why it's worth saving. Not by conquering it, but by leaving it alone. Give me one day. One day to show you what you're asking me to give up." He held his breath. The entire world was watching. The fate of humanity rested on the next words from the alien Empress. Yuna looked into his eyes for a long, long time. She saw his fear, but she also saw his sincerity. Finally, a small, curious smile touched her lips. "One day," she said. "Show me, Jin. Show me the value of your world." The morning was bright and clear. The sky a pale blue that was almost normal if you ignored the dark. Geometric shapes hanging silently in orbit. Jin stood at the entrance of the secure facility, his heart pounding. Agent Park stood beside him, looking deeply uncomfortable. "This is a terrible risk." Park muttered into his communicator. "The subject is moving to a public location. I want snipers on every roof. I want a full perimeter. If anything happens..." Jin wasn't listening. He was watching the door. It opened, and Yuna stepped out. She was not wearing her imperial gown. Instead, she wore simple, dark pants and a jacket that had been provided for her. It was meant to help her blend in, but it was impossible. Her posture, her silver-dusted skin, her striking purple eyes, she looked like a queen in disguise. Her stone-faced guards followed, but she held up a hand. "You will remain here," she said to them. Their expressions did not change, but they stopped moving. "Today, it is just Jin and I." She walked over to Jin. "Well, where will you take me first, Jin?" "To one of your great palaces. A center of learning?" Jin took a deep breath. "No, not first." He pointed to a small, beat-up car that had been brought for them. "We're going to a market." Yuna looked at the car, then at Jin, her expression unreadable. "A market? A place of commerce?" "Yes," Jin said. "A very loud and messy one. Please just try to see it." The drive was quiet. Yuna stared out the window. watching the city of Bizin pass by. She observed the traffic, the people walking on the sidewalks, the tall buildings. She did not speak. Jin focused on driving, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. He parked the car a few blocks from a large, traditional market. Even from a distance, the noise hit them, a chaotic symphony of vendors shouting, people talking, and music playing from small shops. As they walked into the main alley of the market, the chaos enveloped them. The air was thick with smells: sizzling meat, fresh fish, spicy peppers, and sweet pastries. Brightly colored awnings shaded piles of fruits and vegetables. Ajamas, the older Korean women, called out their prices, their voices strong and confident. Yuna stopped walking. Her usual calm was gone. She looked overwhelmed. Her eyes darted from one stall to another, taking in the vibrant, disordered life of it all. It is so loud, she said, her voice barely a whisper. This is normal, Jin said. This is life. He led her to a stall selling hotyak, sweet Korean pancakes. He bought one and broke it in half, giving a piece to her. She took it carefully, sniffing it. She took a small bite. Her eyes widened. It is very sweet, she said. A strange, small sound escaped her lips. It was almost a laugh. Jin smiled for the first time in days. Yes, it is. They walked further. Jin pointed out things he thought she would find interesting. An old man carefully ranging dried fish. A young couple arguing playfully over which fruit to buy. A group of children running through the crowd, laughing, clutching sticks of candy. Where are their guardians? Yuna asked, watching the children. They don't need guardians here, Jin said. Their parents are probably at a nearby stall. This is a community. People watch out for each other. Yuna watched as a vendor scolded a child for getting too close to a hot grill, then gently shooed him back towards his mother. She saw the mother bow her head in a quick thank you. No words were exchanged, but the understanding was clear. On my world, Yuna said quietly, children are raised in creches for maximum efficiency. They are taught what they need to know for their assigned roles. Jin looked at her. That sounds lonely. She didn't answer. She just kept watching. Next, Jin took her to a small, quiet park nestled between the tall buildings. The noise of the market faded, replaced by the sound of birds and the wind in the trees. An old man was sitting on a bench, and a little boy, his grandson, was struggling to fly a kite. The kite kept dipping and diving towards the ground. The old man spoke in a patient, gentle voice. No, June, more string. Let it catch the wind. You have to feel it. The boy tried again, his small face scrunched in concentration. The kite wobbled, then caught a gust of wind and soared upwards. The boy laughed, a pure, joyful sound. The old man clapped his hands, his face breaking into a wide, wrinkled smile. Yuna stood perfectly still, watching them. She watched for a long time. That man, she said finally. He is not a professional educator. He is simply the child's grandfather. Yes, Jin said. And he gains nothing from this activity. It does not produce food. It does not advance technology. It does not increase efficiency. No, Jin said. It doesn't. He does it because he loves his grandson. He wants to share a moment of joy with him. He wants to pass on a memory. Yuna was silent. The concept seemed to settle heavily on her. Passing on a memory, she repeated softly. Her eyes stayed on the old man and the boy. A strange, almost hungry look on her face for lunch. Jin took her to a small, family-run restaurant tucked away in a side street. It was the kind of place he had gone to with his own family since he was a boy. The owner, an elderly woman everyone called Halmioni, recognized him. Jino. It's been too long, she said, wiping her hands on her apron. She looked at Yuna with open curiosity, but no fear. And you brought a friend. She is very beautiful. Jin introduced Yuna simply as his friend. Halmioni brought them a feast of simple, home-cooked food, steaming bowls of rice, several types of kimchi, a sizzling hot plate of bulgogi, and a rich, savory soup. Yuna watched how Jin used his chopsticks and copied him. She tasted each dish, her expressions shifting from curiosity to surprise to pleasure. The flavors are complex, she said. Each one is different. They fight on my tongue, but in a pleasant way. Halmioni laughed. That's the garlic and chili. It has to fight a little. That's how you know it's alive. As they ate, Halmioni told stories. She talked about how she and her husband had started the restaurant 50 years ago with nothing. She talked about her children, who were now doctors and engineers, and how they still came home every Sunday for her cooking. She talked about her husband, who had passed away, and how she could still feel his spirit in the kitchen. Yuna listened, utterly captivated. She asked no questions. She just absorbed the story of a simple, hard, and deeply loved life. When they finished, Halmioni refused to let Jin pay. For your beautiful friend, she said, winking at him. As they left, Yuna looked back at the small restaurant. She gave us her food and her stories, and she asked for nothing in return. That's kindness, Jin said. That's humanity. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Jin drove them to the edge of the city, to a quiet beach. They walked along the sand, the sound of the waves a gentle rhythm. The giant ships were still visible in the darkening sky. But here, by the sea, the world felt almost peaceful. Jin stopped and pulled out his phone. He showed Yuna his photos. Not the ones on Stellar Link, but his real ones. Pictures of his family. His mother laughing in their kitchen. His father teaching him to ride a bike. His sister's graduation. Pictures of his friends, their arms around each other. Making silly faces, he explained each one. The story behind the laughter. The hard work behind the graduation. The friendship behind the silly faces. Yuna looked at each picture for a long time. She pointed to one of Jin as a young boy, sitting on his grandmother's lap as she showed him how to season cabbage for kimchi. This, she said, her voice soft. This is what you meant. The taste of home. It is not just the food. It is the memory of the person who made it with you. Yes, Jin said. He looked at her, his eyes earnest. Yuna, you said you wanted a connection. You wanted something real. This is real. This messy, loud, complicated, and beautiful life. It's built on choices, on freedom, on love that is given, not commanded. If you force everyone to follow your rules, if you take away their choices, you will destroy the very thing that makes it valuable. You'll kill the soul of this world. He looked up at her fleet, a dark scar on the twilight sky. You can protect us from other empires, but who will protect us from you? Yuna stood silently, watching the waves roll in. The last light of the sun glinted in her amethyst eyes. The confident Empress was gone. In her place was a woman who looked thoughtful and perhaps, for the first time, a little uncertain. She had come to see his world, and she had seen more than she ever expected. She had seen the human heart. The great chamber was silent. The leaders of Earth watched on their screens. Agent Park stood by the door, his body tense. Jin waited, his heart beating a nervous rhythm in his chest. He had shown her everything he could. Now, the future of his world depended on the thoughts of one alien Empress. Yuna stood in the center of the room. She was no longer in the simple human clothes. She wore her own garments again. A gown of shifting gray and silver that seemed to hold a faint light. She looked like a ruler once more, but the expression on her face was different. It was not the cool, distant look of an empress. It was thoughtful and perhaps a little sad. She looked at the faces on the screens. Then she looked at Jin. She gave him a small, almost imperceptible nod. It was a thank you, leaders of Earth. She began, her voice clear and resonant, but without its former edge of command. For my entire life, I have been taught one truth. Order is the highest good. Control brings peace. The Korvax Dominion, with its perfect systems and its unified will, is the pinnacle of civilization. We believed that any other way was chaos, that it was weakness. She paused, her gaze drifting as if she was seeing the market, the park, the old restaurant. Jin asked for one day to show me the value of his world. I saw your chaos. I saw your noise. I saw an old man flying a kite with a child for no logical reason. I saw a woman give food and stories to a stranger and ask for nothing in return. She turned her piercing, purple eyes back to the cameras. I was wrong. Collective breath seemed to be held across the planet. Strength is not only in unity, it is also in diversity. Peace is not only in control, it is also in the freedom to choose, even to choose wrongly. The value of your world is not in its resources or its strategic position. Its value is in its Zheng, in its messy, illogical, and beautiful human heart. She straightened her shoulders. Her decision made. I withdraw my ultimatum. The Korvax Dominion will not make Earth a protectorate. A wave of shock and relief swept through the room. Jin felt his knees go weak. Agent Park closed his eyes for a moment, a look of pure exhaustion on his face. But Yuna continued, and the room fell silent again. The galaxy is not a safe place. There are other empires. They are not like me. They will see your world as a prize to be taken. My fleet will not leave you defenseless. She looked at the Secretary General. I propose a treaty, an alliance between the sovereign powers, the Korvax Star Dominion and the planetary nation of Earth. We will share technology and knowledge. We will open diplomatic and cultural exchanges. My fleet will move to a higher orbit. It will not be a threat hanging over your heads. It will be a shield, watching the stars for dangers, and it will only act if you ask for our help. The Secretary General was speechless for a moment. An alliance. As equals, as partners, Yuna corrected gently. You will teach us about your art, your music, your kimchi, and we will teach you about the stars. It will not always be easy. There will be disagreements, but it will be a choice. Your choice." The relief in the room was now palpable. The grim faces on the screens began to show the first signs of hope. "And what about Jin?" Agent Park asked, his voice cautious. Yuna turned to Jin. A genuine smile, warm and soft, touched her lips. It was the smile from their online chats. "That," she said, "is for us to decide. Our connection is real, but it must be built on choice, not on an imperial command. I will not take him, but I will invite him. Jin, my ship is my home. I would like you to visit, to see my world, and I would like to come back to yours, to taste Halmioni's food again, to walk on your beach. We will see what we become together in time." Jin looked at her. He saw the powerful Empress, but he also saw the lonely woman who loved his lo-fi music mixes. He saw the ruler of a star empire, but he also saw the person who had been captivated by the sight of a grandfather and a kite. She was offering him the stars, but she was also offering to share his world. It was no longer a demand. It was an invitation. "Yes," he said, his voice firm and clear. "I would like that." The news spread across the world faster than light. The invasion was over. The war had been averted. The alien fleet was not leaving, but it was no longer an enemy. It was a guardian. People poured into the streets, but this time it was not in panic. It was in celebration. They hugged and cried and looked up at the sky with wonder instead of fear. A few days later, Jin stood at the same landing field where Yuna's shuttle had first touched down. The mood was completely different. There were still soldiers and officials, but the tension was gone. Agent Park stood next to him, actually smiling. "Quite a week." Park said. Jin could only nod. Yuna walked towards them, her two guards behind her carrying a small, elegant case. She stopped in front of Jin. "This is for you," she said. The guards opened the case. Inside was a communication device, sleek and beautiful. "It is a direct link to me. No apps, no filters. Whenever you are ready to visit, or just to talk, use it." Jin took the device. It was warm in his hand. "Thank you, Yuna." She looked at the city behind him, at the people watching from a safe distance, their faces full of curiosity and hope. "Take care of your world, Jin. It is a precious thing." Then she did something that surprised everyone. She stepped forward and embraced him. It was not an imperial gesture. It was a human one. A goodbye between two people who had found something unexpected in the vast darkness of space. "I will see you soon," she whispered. Then she turned and walked up the ramp into her shuttle. The hatch closed. The ship rose silently into the air, a sleek silver fish returning to the dark ocean of the sky. Jin stood there for a long time, watching until the shuttle was just a speck, then gone. He looked down at the communication device in his hand. He looked up at the sky, where the Korvax fleet now formed a distant, glittering ring around the moon, a promise of protection, not conquest. He thought about the future. It was uncertain, and maybe a little scary, but it was their future. A future of choice. He turned and walked away from the landing field, back towards the noisy, messy, and beautiful world he had helped save. He was no longer just Jin, the graphic designer. He was Jin, the man who had swiped right on an Empress, and in doing so, had taught her the value of peace.